In this video, I want to share with you an update on my $8,000 stock portfolio after 4 months of investing $2,000 each month. If you're new to my channel, I work as a finance manager at a top tech company with an MBA in finance and a CPA designation. For a quick background, I'm investing $1,000 each month into building my dividend stock portfolio and another $1,000 each month into building my undervalued stock portfolio. So after 4 months, I've invested a total of $8,000 and I'll continue to invest $2,000 each month going forward. So without any further ado, let's go into my Excel file to check how my stock portfolio has been performing so far, starting from undervalued stocks. So this table shows my entire undervalued stock portfolio so far. As you can see, I have 10 different stocks in my portfolio. I also have the average cost at the time of investment in each stock, the number of shares that I own in each company, and the total investment, which is just average cost multiplied by number of shares. And as you can see in the total investment column, the total adds up to $4,000.62. And in these two columns, I'll first type the current price of each share and then any dividends that I may have received so far to see if I'm gaining or losing money on each of the companies that I have here. So let's start with the first company on my list, which is Apple. I purchased 3 shares of the Apple stock at $173.21 per share. At the time of this video, the current price of an Apple stock is $211.66, and I've also received 75 cents in dividends so far, which means that I'm up by $116.10 or 22.3% return on my Apple investment. The next stock on my list is Boeing, and I own 5 shares of their stock at $181.20. At the time of this video, the Boeing stock is trading at $182.06, which means that I'm up by $4.30 or 0.5% return on my investment. The next company is BYD, and I own 2 shares of their stock at $57.74 per share. Now BYD is trading at $59.08 per share, which means that I'm up by $2.68 or 2.3% return. The next company on my list is Chewy, and I own 23 shares of their stock at $16.84 per share. At the time of this video, Chewy is now trading at $27.18, which means that I'm up by $237.82 or 61.4% return on my Chewy investment. The company number 5 on my list is Costco, and I own 1/4 of a share at $721.16. At the time of this video, the price of a Costco share is now $849.40, and the company has also paid me a dividend of 29 cents so far, which means that I'm up by $32.35 or plus 17.9% return. The company number 6 is Disney, and I own 5 shares of their stock at $104.44. Now Disney is trading at $99.01, which means that I'm losing $27.15 or negative 5.2% loss on my Disney investment. The next company is PayPal, and I have 2 shares of their stock at $60.92. PayPal is now trading at $58.06, which means that I'm losing $5.72 or negative 4.7% loss. Stock number 8 on my list is Shopify, and I have 12 shares of their stock at $62.87 per share. The current price of the Shopify stock is $66.08, which means that I'm up by $38.52 or plus 5.1% return. My company number 9 is Tesla, and I have 2 shares of their stock at $172.22 per share. The current price of the Tesla stock is $197.80, which means that I'm making $51.16 so far, or plus 14.9% return. And last but not least, the company number 10 on my list is Unilever, and I have 3 shares of their stock at $49.66. The current price of their stock is $54.99, and the company has paid me $1.35 in dividends so far, which means that I'm making $17.34 on my investment so far in the company, or 11.6% return. So overall, you'll see that I invested $4,000.62 into my undervalued stock portfolio, and the total value of my portfolio after 4 months is now $468.02. This means that so far I'm up by $467.40 or plus 11.7% on my entire portfolio. Soon I'll be picking new stocks where I want to invest another $1,000 as part of my July investments, so stay tuned for that video on my channel. And now let's go into my Excel to review the performance of my dividend stocks. This table shows the dividend stock portfolio that I've built over the past 4 months. You will see 13 companies on my list, the average cost per share at the time of my purchase, the number of shares that I own, and the total investment, which is just average cost multiplied by number of shares. And overall, you will see that my current value of the portfolio is almost $4,000, or $3,996.36 to be exact. And now if I type the current price of each stock as of today and any dividends that I've received so far, we'll be able to see if I'm making or losing money on each one of the companies that I've invested in. So let's start with the first company on my list, which is ADP. I own 1 share of their stock at $245.06. At the time of this video, the value of their shares is now $238.70, which means that I'm losing $6.36 or negative 2.6% loss. The next company on my list is Avalon Bay, and I have 1 share of their stock at $175.73. At the time of this video, the value of their stock is $206.50, and I've received $1.70 so far in dividends from the company, which means that I'm up by $32.47 or 18.5% return on my investment. The company number 3 on my list is BP, and I have 5 shares of their stock at $38.12 per share. As of today, the value of their stock is $36.08, which means that I'm losing $10.20 so far, or negative 5.4% loss. The company number 4 on my list is Clorox, and I have 4 shares of their stock at $136.54. At the time of this video, the value of their stock is now $137.50, which means that I'm up by $3.84 or plus 0.7% return so far. Stock number 5 is Johnson & Johnson, and I have 1 share of their stock at $157.75. Their stock price decreased to $146.28, and the company has paid me $1.24 in dividends so far, which means that I'm losing $10.23 or negative 6.5% loss so far on my investment. And number 6 is Coca-Cola, the company that we all know about, and I have 3 shares of their stock at $60.80 per share. Coca-Cola is now trading at $63.55 per share, which means that I'm making $8.25 so far, or plus 4.5% return. Company number 7 is 3M Corporation, and I have 2 shares of their stock at $93.33 per share. The value of their stock now is $102.35, and I've also received $1.40 in dividends, which means that I'm up by $19.44 or 10.4% return so far. My company number 8 is PepsiCo, which is the competitor of Coca-Cola, and I have 1 share of their stock at $163.80. At the time of this video, it's trading at $165.10, which means that I'm up by $1.30 so far, or plus 0.8% return on my investment. The company number 9 is Pfizer, and I have 10 shares of their stock at $26.71 per share. The company is now trading at $27.96 per share, and they've also paid me $4.20 in dividends so far, which means that I'm up by $16.70 or plus 6.3% return on my investment. Company number 10 is Stanley Black & Decker, and I have 7 shares of their stock at $87.30 per share. The company is trading at exactly $80 per share, and the company has paid me $5.67 in total dividends so far, which means that I'm losing $45.43 or negative 7.4% loss so far on my investment. Company number 11 is Tyson Foods, and I have 4 shares at $57.98 per share. Tyson Foods is now trading at $57.19 per share, and the company has paid me $1.96 so far in dividends, which means that I'm down by $1.20 or negative 0.5% loss on my investment so far. The company number 12 is UPS, and I have 4 shares of their stock at $139.64. Their stock is now trading at $136.99 per share, and I've received $1.63 in dividends so far, which means that I'm down by $8.97 or negative 1.6% loss on my investment. And the last company in my dividend portfolio is Verizon, and I have 12 shares of their stock at $39.96 per share. At the time of this video, Verizon is trading at $41.27 per share, and the company has paid me $3.99 in dividends so far, which means that I'm up by $19.71 or plus 4.1% return on my investment. So overall, you'll see that I've invested $3,996.36 in dividend stocks, and the current value of my portfolio is $4,015.68, which means that I'm up by $19.32 or plus 0.5% return so far. And what's interesting is that most of my $19 profit so far comes in the form of dividends themselves, so if I sum them up, I'll get $27.79. So that means that my overall portfolio went down by a couple of dollars because the prices of certain stocks decreased, but the dividends that I've received so far made up for the loss and actually made the profit. Stay tuned for my new video coming out in early July, where I'll invest another $1,000 in dividend stocks, and I'll show you which companies I end up investing in and why. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.